Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clarity in Commerce. This is a new interview series brought to you by the Mars Agency, where we're hosting candid conversations about game-changing trends in commerce with some of the talented, forward-thinking professionals who we have the pleasure of working with on a regular basis as clients and partners. Our topic today is what marketers still don't understand about digital engagement. And our guest is George Gallate, who for quite some time now has been one of the foremost thinkers in the digital marketing space. I should also say one of the foremost executors, because George is definitely a hands-on kind of person. George is currently principal at Marketing to You, which is a growth-focused marketing and marketing communications consultancy. But he has more than 30 years experience building and running successful digital marketing teams across a number of disciplines and even a few geographies. And you'll pick up on that second piece as soon as you hear him speak. He has built and led agencies and agency networks. His CV includes a tenure as global chairman of Havas Digital, as well as CEO of RKG, which at the time was the world's largest independent search agency. He's also been a highly successful CMO, including 3 years at Merkle, the performance marketing and data agency. Full disclosure, George is also a member of the Mars Agency's board of directors, where we get the benefit of learning from him on a regular basis. So George, in terms of the what's taking place and what marketers might still not understand, George, there's always been key distinctions between digital marketing and digital shopper marketing. Lately, of course, those distinctions being made most often and most strenuously around retail media versus, I guess, what you call traditional digital media. So maybe that's where we can kick things off. And you can tell us, a little bit about what we need to understand here and what you think the key elements of retail media are that make it unique from everything else that's out there.
I think that we're at a really interesting point in time, particularly for brands as well as retailers. And the shopper can either benefit or not benefit by this really interesting time we're in. And you mentioned the metaverse, which we'll sort of stay away from because I think it's just basically what we've been doing. But there are two big drivers to what's happening. There are different degrees to how each operates depending on the retail media and the shopper marketing that we're doing. But those two big areas are targeting and context. To targeting, the ability that we have to serve advertising to a known shopper or shoppers or segment of shoppers is highly valuable and massively improves effectiveness. Though added to this, and something that I don't think marketers fully appreciate in terms of the opportunities that they have with retail media, is to be able to serve to a specific target within the context of their shopping or within the context of their research for their shopping, and to be able to do this in that environment, both individually, the value of targeting and the value of context are good. The value of putting these together is incredibly beneficial. These values, though, apply equally to each member of the full shopping, the triumvirate of the full shopping experience. So the shopper themselves have an enhanced experience as they're getting a more appropriate offer within the context of their shopping experience. The brand or the manufacturer has the benefit of highly targeted media, which means less waste, which should mean better ROI. And then the retailer has the benefit of increased sales as well as an additional monetized channel, which makes a huge difference to value for everyone in that context because they can keep their prices at a great level for consumers. And so there are improved experience for each part. To go back to the start of your question, though, to look at traditional digital media, yes, we get targeting, but often not to the degree that shopper data will give us. And there is rarely the richness of context that a shopper channel will give.
Okay, so then I guess it's fairly obvious to say that the access to that first-party data and the ability to use that first-party data, the most critical benefit, the most critical difference that marketers are getting from retail media, and maybe there really isn't anything comparable out there that you can use. Is that safe to say?
It is safe to say, but that leads us down a second channel, which is the far-reaching changes of a few things happening now, which is something that many CMOs are not really on top of, but that is the changes that are being forced onto us by CCPA at minimum in the US, but by GDPR globally. So the changes in privacy, as well as the changes that the deprecation of the cookie are going to give. So we're at a really interesting time in digital and data overall. And I expect there will be further changes. To, though, your point on the value of that first-party data, ideally the brand or the manufacturer has been collecting their own first-party data so that they can be using that in context of their own advertising. But if they haven't, the additional benefit to them of appropriate privacy-compliant use of retail-based data is going to be incredibly important for brands as they move forward, because the ability of that retailer being able to improve targeting of a brand's message is critical in creating effective programs, both from an ROI perspective as well as in driving real shopper engagement.
Okay, now you mentioned the departure of the cookie, been a bit belabored, I think, since they originally announced it was going away, but it will be going away, whether the regulatory commissions decide or not. And so, of course, that really plays into what we're talking about here. Once it finally does happen, once the third-party cookies do go away, what will marketers need to be doing more of, and what will they need to be doing less of?
Well, marketers need to be aware of the changes that not only the changes that Google are bringing us, but also Apple are bringing us, because they're also probably in some ways changing the game even more dramatically in terms of what we were able to do in terms of targeting and what we're now able to do. We could spend the whole of this session talking about it, Peter, and having had many conversations with you about this, I'm sure we could fill even an hour on this subject. So I'll make it brief and give a top line. Marketers, especially CPG and the like, need to be collecting their own first-party data in an opted-in, privacy-compliant way. It's not just for improving the targeting of their advertising. It's really to gain an in-depth understanding of who their shoppers are and to understand truly what shoppers are doing through the use of that first-party data. They need to be on top of the options being developed for continuing to be able to target. And as I said, Google's doing one thing, Apple's doing another thing. They're probably, to some degrees, both driven by their own self-serving approaches, not from a concern of privacy necessarily for the shopper, but the CMO needs to be aware of industry-based targeting opportunities that are being developed. They need to be on top of how the deprecation of the cookie will change measurement. For example, there will be in the interim an increased reliance on last touch attribution, and last touch attribution is a very limited way to look at what actually drives behavior. So to counter this, they need to have a tool that enables a holistic understanding of all of the channels that they work in and all of the various stimuli that affect consumer behavior. In this context, the Mars Agency's Maryland platform is an important solution for a marketer, in that Maryland allows the ingestion of all various data sources to be able to determine what actually is working and what's not working across all channels of a shopper experience, including retail media. So, marketers have to be ultimately looking for a solution such as that.
Okay. Now, you've talked about the ability to target and the importance of targeting. You could sort of look, there's been some discussion lately, a fair amount of discussion about the collapsing of the classic marketing funnel, the classic purchase funnel within the digital realm, right? Because you are so close, a couple of clicks away to selling. Are we making distinctions that are irrelevant now? I mean, to some degree, should all digital marketing be viewed from a shopper marketing perspective?
Peter, I'm not sure if you're setting this up for me to disclose my age. I could pull a marketing textbook down from my shelf. I completed my degree in 1984. And even back then, and even in the Antipodes down in Australia, we thought the funnel was a useful model as a rudimentary understanding of consumer behavior. I think the funnel died when it was first invented, but it was a useful construct to understand that logically a shopper needs to be aware and interested and possibly even desire something before they take action. But really, it's only a model. Shoppers come in and out of the funnel at all various points in time. Some of what happens is pure impulse. And, by definition of what impulse is, there's not a whole lot of awareness happening before then. Some is highly considered. So for me, great marketing is as the result of understanding your target, your ability to engage in a way that causes a change of or an increase in desired behavior. And therefore, critical is not the construct of the funnel. Critical is again, understanding the use of and understanding of data, an appreciation of context of where the shopper is and what the shopper is doing, and the channel in which the shopper is operating. Very difficult for a marketer to be able to influence in real time what's happening on Amazon. Different ability to be able to, depending on the retailer, cause an attitude or an influence within the store or even at the checkout. And so that funnel, great for marketing students, probably not as valuable to the CMO.
In the real world. Okay. Now, we haven't yet talked about any kind of distinctions about devices in digital marketing. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think at this point, marketers have gotten pretty good about mobile optimized web pages and graphics and things like that. But would you say they're doing as good a job with the communications piece of it, with the mobile optimized message that they're sending?
It's a great question. And the terrible answer is, it depends. Some have and some haven't. In my thinking, mobile is the physical representational manifestation of the digital world. And if you look at it in that context, my approach therefore is not mobile optimized, but mobile first. And I think great marketers are now mobile first, and really not so much thinking about the web or the desktop or a laptop or even a tablet. With mobile, a CMO has the opportunity to engage with their target in real time and in context. You can look to, and I could give examples of brands that I admire in that context, but I think much of the work of what we're doing at the Mars Agency is leading in the idea of both being contextually relevant and in real time. Some of the work that we've done for Campbell's, I think the Campbell's Soup Company is at the very forefront of that, where we're serving a meal idea within the context of a shopping experience. So that's what mobile allows me to do. And that is not an experience that was developed for a desktop or the web. It was developed for a mobile.
So then using mobile as a shopper engagement tool.
Yeah. I think that is a really interesting part to where we are. I mean, we both avoid it, but when we're in the aisle, you only have to look at how many people are looking at this thing. Oh, that's an interesting effect. You only have to look at how many people are looking at this thing. And if we discount out those that are engaged socially or those that are simply looking at their shopping list, and realize that they are actually as engaged with this thing as they are with a product on an aisle, then that opportunity for real context is very, very powerful. If we then factor in how much commerce is taking place on a mobile device and being delivered directly, wow, that has changed the role of the CMO in Shopper.
So we've been talking a lot about the importance of the data. What best practices are there for making sure that the organization can take that data and translate it into effective digital engagement with shoppers?
The first thing we've got are the industry available, appropriately collected, anonymized data sets that allow us to understand market share, allow us to understand pricing, and allow us to understand what's happening at that more macro level. And if we go from that, for example, IRI-based data sets or Nielsen data sets, and go the whole way over to this extreme where a clever marketer has collected their own first-party data that's privacy compliant and opted in, this CMO is able to actually build loyalty. This CMO is able to appropriately take action that their consumer has opted in to get. And so I've sort of changed your question around a little bit, but looked at that continuum of every marketer should be using industry-based data for the broader picture, but smart marketers will have used and created their own data sets that allow deep understanding and individual engagement. Either when I've been a CMO or when I've consulted to CMOs, which I've done for the last 35 years, there used to be three things that we'd say as a direct marketer, which is sort of equally relevant now for pure shopper and retail. And for a direct marketer, it was targeting, offer, execution. Targeting is data. Offer is context. Execution is the channel that you're in. And that is where we are today still, even with what's happening from a shopper or retail perspective with Amazon and to the metaverse, which is data, context, and channel. And a CMO needs to be on top of their own consumer data, using it to understand the consumer, using it to engage in a relevant way. Context is critical. And for the CPG, CMO, the opportunity to be operating within context that retail media gives them is critically important. And finally, that point of channel and the understanding of the various channels that they're operating in or the various stimuli that are going out to the shopper is very important to understand. And that again draws you to the use of a knowledge platform such as a Marilyn from the Mars agency to be able to understand all three aspects of that: data, context, and channel.
All right, that's going to wrap up this episode of Commerce Made Clear. On behalf of everyone here at the Mars Agency, I want to thank George Gallate for giving us his insights today. So much great perspective. Thank you, George. Maybe we can entice you to come back again sometime.
I'd love to, Peter. Thanks for the opportunity.
Also want to thank all of you out there who joined us today. We know your time is valuable. You probably got about a couple dozen emails while you were listening to us here today. You probably were only able to answer half of those while you were listening and multitasking. So you've got some catching up to do, we know. Thank you for being here. We hope you're leaving with some actionable insights that's gonna make your jobs a little bit easier and make your work a little more effective in the future. If you need more information on digital commerce and digital engagement, I encourage you to visit themarsagency.com, go to the Insights and Thinking blog, and there you're gonna find a lot of great reports and white papers and articles about how to engage better with digital shoppers. And we also hope you'll be back here with us again in a couple of weeks to partake in the next episode. So thanks again and have a great day. Take care.